Ever peel back layers of reality only to find nothing beneath? No great secrets or fissures in your soul, just a gaping void, a vast emptiness that stretches without limit. Existence is a quandary, and the place of chivalry in that quandary is, questionable. I've been thinking about this way more than I needed to. What I meant to say was, The Silly Knight is an adorable point-and-click adventure game by Alexander Preymak. The link to the free demo and prologue of the game is in the description. There was a lot of love and care put into this. Everything has this cozy, kitschy, hand-drawn quality to it, and it probably is hand-drawn, or maybe with a tablet, I don't know. And there is art for everything. Even the tutorial has little bubbles, and the titular Silly Knight character is fully voiced, as he talks through each instruction and offers insight or comedy, sometimes a bit of both.
Don't forget to point and click on everything you see. They say it's fun. I think it's rather impolite.
See, because it's rude to other people to point at people and things sometimes, we do it anyway, of course, because we're gauche. The Silly Knight, on the other hand, has unknowingly offered us a lot of insight into his character, and that as a knight he does in fact subscribe to some kind of chivalry, or at least basic etiquette. We'll come back to that. There are adorable animations all over the place, like the mouse and point clicker turning into an hourglass when stuff is going on. There's this one where he scratches his bum, I found particularly humorous. There is a lot more here than I expected to find. For the game and narrative, it's framed as an escape room scenario. You have an inventory and must solve a simple puzzle to progress. But once the first main step is solved, things start to come apart at the seams. There will now be spoilers for the entirety of the available demo prologue of this game, along with some rambling theories from a needlessly invested bystander. If anything I said appealed, I encourage you to check out the game on itch.io and go no further. I would say, and come back after playing it to watch the video, but if I succeed in directing you to the game,
you will never find me or this video ever again.
But I have questions. Who is the Silly Knight? What king, what kingdom does he serve? Does he subscribe to the code of chivalry? What place does that have in his dungeon cell? How did he get there and why? He wants to escape. This is his only and most desperate prerogative. There is precious little in the cell to assist us. Getting into spoilers now. Among the observable objects include a radio, as anachronistic as that device appears, with audio that is indiscernible, but at the same time, there must be meaning within that white noise. There is a candle. A giant candle. Actually, is it giant or is it just perspective? It could be a perspective thing, but he says it reminds him of his fireplace. What is going on here? Not all is right from the very first moment, though you may not appreciate it. Eventually, we solve the simple puzzle. Seemingly, this is just a way to start off the game, as if it was just a tutorial phase. Very tongue-in-cheek. The bucket is a toilet. There is a key in the toilet. I think we all know and appreciate this reference. It's become timeless. If there is a toilet of any kind in a game, we all must check, just to see. Once we've got the key, the titular Silly Knight character attempts to leave the cell. Remember, he desires to escape. It is the only guiding message we have to play this game. But beyond the cell door, when we finally unlock it, he opens that door only to find nothing. There is nothing in the vast creeping void that lies beyond. Just massive nothingness, smothering us. And as it zooms slowly out, there's a cat that just floats on by. It meows.
Meow.
And keeps drifting. Hilarious. And we are left with so many more questions. Where are we? Why? How did we get here? What has happened? Has anything happened? Was this always the state of things? The Silly Knight does appear to be confused. We are confused. This appears to mark the end of the prologue. It even thanks the player for playing the demo. This is seemingly the end. That's it, folks. Nothing more to see here. But this is also ostensibly a demo. It provides us the hook for a full game of some kind. It's just the prologue. And then, did you listen carefully?
Come back.
In the black screen, we get an auditory request. there is a voice that compels you and asks, "Come back." And you have two options on the menu. Not return or play again. It says, "Come back." Come back or quit. Only quitters quit. We've also only got the two options, so, obviously we go back. And it's the same cell. The silly knight suddenly finds himself back in the exact same cell. Great, so this is just the replay button. No! The silly knight is not so silly after all. He knows, just like we do, that we have been here before. He even comments about it. And strangely, he already has the key to leave the cell. But the apple is back on the window ledge, where it was before, and it's missing from his inventory if you picked it up earlier, which I did. The apple feels like hope. It's one of the only things in the cell that speaks to life and vibrancy, and that feels very intentional to me. Never go anywhere without your apple. Isn't it weird we don't just get a pair of apples, though? The knight even makes a comment that the apples don't stack. Again, it feels very intentional. That we keep the key, knowledge, but we're always losing the apple. There is also a single large but ominous crack on the wall, a new addition to the cell. A crack in the wall, like a crack has formed in our perception of reality. We set to solve the exact same puzzle, except of course we already have the key, and the knight is reluctant to interact with objects further, because he already has the key. As if he says he knows enough, thanks, and the world that is the little cell has nothing further to offer him. We leave, the void remains, and perspective shifts. Visually, literally, and definitely metaphorically. We don't even need to click next. The game deposits us right back in the same cell. The same, but different. Again, we have the key. We have lost the apple and must pick it up again. And there are more cracks in the wall, almost reflective of the changing psyche of our character. Remember, his only drive and purpose has been escape. He does the same thing over and over, each time hoping it will work this time, and inevitably, it doesn't. Back to the cell. The wall has broken away. We can see through the giant gap in the wall that only the void lies beyond. Interestingly, the window that showed a normal outside is intact, but the knight never observed it adequately enough to determine the answer to my questions. Is the outside a lie, just painted on the window, or is there something else going on here? Again, how did he get here? How did the knight end up locked in the cell to begin with? Does he even remember? He doesn't mention anything like, "Blasted Braxian barbarians up to their no-good tricks again! Is this the work of that dastardly wizard? I should reclaim my magical sword, won at the tournament of Croissant, and show him what for." There is nothing that hints at who this guy is, not even a smidgen, really. The bit I pointed out during the tutorial explanation is just a minor line that may, if you squint, indicate a knightly appreciation for manners, and his reluctance to use his hand to search the toilet bucket, or even tip it over and risk making a mess on the floor. Also a minor line that possibly speaks to chivalric preoccupation with cleanliness next to godliness. But that's a lot to hinge on two minor bits of dialogue. The truth is, we don't know the silly knight. Is the knight even really a knight? Who is his king? Where is his kingdom? Why is there a radio? Is he sure he didn't just spontaneously pop into existence in that very cell? Is the cell even a cell? Does it belong to him? Is it his home, his sandbox? Is this just his kingdom of madness, trapped and confined by his own mind and understanding, and the desperate need to explore and expand, only to find he is a lonely existence in a dark, empty space? And he's crushed with the concept that what lies beyond must be more than what actually is, which is nothing. Or maybe it just feels that way. Another important bit when the wall cracks and breaks and shows that there is only the void on the other side, along with the bits of rock and debris floating in the space, other objects have begun to float as well, including the apple, which the knight will no longer touch because it's floating, and he says he's afraid. Afraid to hope and dream and even try again. This time, when you examine the cell door, he knows he has the key to leave, but he wonders if he even wants to. Escape has been the only guiding force of the game, and it has been his only goal and objective. But now that he has repeatedly seen the abyss on the other side and the return to the cell, he is increasingly reluctant to leave. He is comfortable here compared with the vast nothing. The unknown, the dark and uncertainty that lies beyond is too terrifying to comprehend. Again, he has the key. Knowledge is all he takes with him. He can free himself at any time. But does he really want to? Aren't cages comfortable sometimes? And at the same time, he will not take the apple. Hope remains afloat, but he has abandoned it. He is too afraid. This feels like existentialism slipping dangerously toward nihilism. Are you or are you not a knight? Sure, this could be just a cute comedic thing, and the strangely dramatic scenes and ambience is included mainly as a way to offset that pure comedy angle and make it stand out more, and that works. Could be the case. But I also think it was intended to be something deeper, or rather, that's probably why it stuck with me so many hours when something that took me 15 minutes to play shouldn't be keeping my brain busy, puzzling over a couple days for hours on end. Maybe there's nothing here. Maybe it's also void of the meaning I'm attempting to assign it. Or maybe I'm right. Maybe there really is something else going on in the silly night. Like the point-and-click escape room scenario was a veneer to peel back within the game, the title and surface of cute comedy may also just be a friendly covering for something more beneath the surface. I was initially confused by this as a demo or a prologue, played through to the point where the game will just close itself out on you. It feels very complete as is. But the more I think about it, the more I realize as a vehicle to appear cute and use that to explore deeper concepts of existence and our place in it, it's also very effective. Existence as a void, stuff in it, but nothing for you, nothing to interact with. It's a ripping and tearing thing for an overactive mind. The concept for nothingness can become a vicious thing, ravaging hope with a chill that consumes and silences, when the mind could otherwise seek out and create purpose from nothing. The world may be a void, devoid of true meaning beyond the imperatives we find and assign to it, but there's meaning in that too. It's all very subjective. The silly knight needs to be steered in such a way so that he can realize that. And it's probably just part of the outfit that he's got this little crown-looking thing on his armor. It's probably a very typical part of the common knight and armor design, but it kind of looks like a crown, doesn't it? I'm not crazy. That looks like a crown. So the knight, maybe a king? Maybe that's why he's in a cell? There's an anime tangent around here about all the handful of times I've seen empty voids used as a physical and not necessarily mental space where characters physically exist. And basically all those 2 cases involved gods and blank slates and the option or refusal to create something new. I don't know if that's intentional here, but go with me for a second. He's a knight, possibly a king. Kings are appointed by God, and or gods if it's an isekai, and knights are the holy sword of that service to kings, gods' appointed representatives on Earth, and so on. Maybe the silly knight is actually a king. Maybe he's actually the god of this realm. Again, he may only be limited by his own mind and perception, comfort and imagination, or lack thereof. For all we know, as a knight, a king, possibly even the god of this strange little void, he may just need the point and click, poke and prod to say, hey, sure, that's what it is. But you aren't alone in that. And it's worth it to keep clicking around and finding things and doing things. We don't get to click on the cat. What's up with that? We should be able to pet the cat. Escape is just the mindset that you're in a cage and can't get out because there's nothing for you out there. Completely untrue. We know there's a cat floating out there, and an apple. Hope is out there. There might be a tree outside your window, or maybe a street, and whether there's cars or pedestrians, there's lives and complex social networks all going on around you. The hard part for anyone is trying to get in there and make your own tiny little cell block that's going to be home for you while you try and escape and make meaning from the world and yourself. It's less empty than it seems. The rest of what you do, think, and feel all has value. Even for you, silly knight. Alternatively, maybe he's ultimately not the one in control, just a sad, tragic figure thrown around at the behest of the Eldritch gods that put him there. And of course, he lacks the understanding for their mercurial whims. No mortal can hope to comprehend that kind of anomalous capriciousness. But then is his solitude and confinement either within the cell or within the void the point? Is this the entertainment that the night offers to the creatures of unknowable nature and intent? If the existence of the cell and the void and the night himself is merely the whim of some vast, unknown cosmic being, is that something he can even hope to escape from? Perhaps the dreaming entity that forms the nothingness itself has made him, and it seeks to wake as much as he desires to be free, only for the nothing to just keep dreaming, and the night to still be trapped. Perhaps the radio is actively tuned in to other realities. Maybe it becomes his one connection across space to the other pockets of this reality that exists within the void. Perhaps the radio is the only insight we have, through that static noise, to know the unknowable of the entity that has made the night's life the way it is. Again, we're exploring bits and pieces of what it means to exist, and if we have the inclusion of eldritch beings, well, that's synonymous with madness and despair. Once more tipping the scales too close to nihilism. Even if you're an ant, even if you live or die at the behest of unknowable entities so much larger and more powerful than yourself, it does not invalidate your struggles, your wants, your needs. Everything is relative, remember? Meaning is still what we make of it. Your dreams and goals are your own. Sometimes we achieve them, sometimes we don't. We adjust, we recalibrate. We are capable of change in a more meaningful and malleable way than is normalized in most media. Characters have goals. They achieve them. It's a happy ending. They don't achieve them. We have the bad ending. I love finding works where this axiom is completely thrown out the window. It seems more impactful and true that a character can achieve a goal and that's not the end. That a character can fail and just pick themselves up and get interested in something else. New goal, objective, unlocked. What about the first one in the list, huh? Don't worry about it. This one's shiny and new. So, yeah, I prefer my former explanation. It's more interesting as a concept, and somehow would manage to be less lore-heavy than something involving eldritch beings. This is probably the first and only time I've thought ancient eldritch monsters were neither necessary nor desirable in a story. But I prefer it, and there is no solid evidence of other intentional powers at work within the game's world as we see it within the current demo. I will ignore the radio for now. It could simply be symbolic for communication and connection across vast distances, a la the void. The candle also doesn't appear to have a purpose, whether it's gigantic or not. These are two prominent items that still make me question every idea I've come up with around this. That's okay. I still prefer the idea that this game ultimately is about a silly knight coming to terms with his own existence, himself, the void, seemingly devoid of meaning, but still strangely full of possibilities, if you bother to look for it. The cat and the apple are proof. Hope and curiosity. Existence and what you make of it, you silly, silly knight. I'd love to see what you can accomplish with a bit more hope, and a bit more curiosity, and willingness to explore all those floating bits we can point and click on. Just remember to always take the apple with you. It's important.